Hi everybody. I just made a video, but I did not have the sound on. So I'm back. I'm going to re-record it with the sound. I had a feeling this was going to happen, but anyway. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about craft hoarding. If you are like me, a fellow creative person, you may find yourself in this position where, you kind of have a lot of stuff and either people give you stuff, or one of my big things is getting craft materials for free. Either people give it away or, I get low cost stuff at tag sales, and I just can't resist because, I'm always interested in trying new things. And, I'm always thinking, oh, well, like, here's the stuff, like, I can use it. And it's never gotten to the point where it's been a huge problem. Like I've never, it hasn't harmed me or anybody else. But it can definitely creep up on you. It can start to affect you and, your space and your spirit and your creativity. One thing that happened in my life was my aunt and uncle were really, really creative people. They were very artistic, very good at crafting. My aunt was a very accomplished weaver. And when they passed away, they had a lot of stuff in their house, and I managed to inherit some of it, and that was great. But it was also kind of sad because there was just so much stuff, and things that hadn't been used and weren't going to be used. There were 16 at least floor looms, and these are huge. These are like 20 feet by 20 feet. Like you couldn't have them all up at the same time. Looms, spinning wheels that were taken apart or partially broken. I gave one to a friend of mine and she loved it and used it all the time. Lots of materials, lots of fabric, yarn, and I'm a big knitter. So I was excited to get some of that yarn, but the problem was that some of it had been destroyed. It had been in big garbage bags, and mice had gotten in there and eaten it and nested in it, and it was just destroyed. So it was also kind of sad to see like how much stuff had accumulated and was never going to be used, and just ultimately kind of died. So that was kind of a lesson to me of using what you have and passing it on. One thing that I learned a few weeks ago from a client of mine is that actually most art materials have a shelf life. And I really hadn't thought of that. I'll notice like when some paints go bad, they dry out, or, things like that. But she actually said, paper has a very short shelf life. And I didn't realize that. I thought that paper was pretty much good unless it was 200 years old and it was crumbling. But apparently, even, over the course of a few months, like if you bought some paper in the winter and you didn't store it properly, by the summer, it will have gone bad because it absorbed moisture, and, the paint won't adhere to it correctly. I wouldn't consider myself that level of a fine artist, but that idea that, even pencils, even the graphite, things like that, they're gonna go bad. There's a time limit. Really made me think, use it or lose it. Like, it's going to go bad. Use this stuff. Don't just hoard it or like wait until some very special project or a special day. That really helped me a lot to let go of some of my art supplies and either give them away or throw them away or donate them. The other thing I've noticed a lot with myself and other people is I like to try different things. I tend to, one year I'll be into metalsmithing, and the next year maybe doing stained glass or pottery. And sometimes it can be frustrating when, you start one craft or activity and you get really into it and, you want to buy all the stuff for it. And then, maybe a year or two later, you're done with it and now you're doing something else. And you still have all the materials from it. And there can be some baggage around that. Like, oh, I was so interested and I was so committed to it, and now I'm not. What does that mean? Am I just a dilettante? And I've invested so much in it. Maybe I'll come back to it someday. What if I don't? So I try to help people let go of that. Like, don't, get too bogged down in that. I've given myself permission as a curious person to just try a lot of different things. I know that I might start scrapbooking and then a year or two later not be that interested in it. So if I buy the materials for it, I'll try and buy them used. and then just give myself permission. Like when I'm done, that's okay, you know? So that's another way to handle it. The last thing I'm going to say is a tip that I got from Fly Lady. She is excellent at helping people to declutter. She's got a whole website. She often says, you know, you can't organize clutter. And for years I was like, that's not true. You can totally organize clutter, you know, as long as you have like, you know, look at the nice shelves and like enough plastic bins and label everything, you know, why not? But what she meant, I think what she meant was, you might be able to organize it, but you're not really going to be able to use it. You know, there's only so many paint, you know, sets of paints that I can have at one time and really use all of them. You know, there's only so many sets of gel pens that I'm really going to use. And, you know, if you have so much stuff, you're not going to be able to find what you need or really appreciate and really revel in what you have. So I am in the process of, you know, donating and blessing. She calls it blessing others. So like you give away some stuff and you're blessing other people with it. You're letting it go. And if you hold on to it, you're kind of depriving other people. You know, that's the flip side. If you're hoarding, you're not allowing somebody else to have this thing. So those are some ways that I get around it in my mind of like letting go of things. I also like to organize yarn swaps with my knitting friends. You know, like if you have this really special yarn and you don't really want to get rid of it, but you give it to somebody that you know, they're going to make something cool with it and you get some yarn back. It feels really good. So it's really about streamlining and not feeling bad about it, not, you know, holding on too tightly and having so much stuff that you get depressed about it, and really letting it flow, but like also being able to use what you have. So I'm curious to hear from you guys if anybody out there has struggled, and I know a lot of you have, with hoarding art supplies, or not necessarily hoarding, but just kind of, you know, having too much or feeling like you have too much. Just let me know how you've dealt with it, if you've dealt with it, what kind of things you're dealing with. And I hope that my tips have helped you and that you'll be able to really streamline in the new year and enjoy your art and have your creativity open up because you've made some more space for it. So I hope this helps you, and I'll talk soon.